Michael William, born October 16, 1969, is a successful man. He seems to have a successful career in real estate. A small happy family with a beautiful wife and a child. Cute girl. They live in a lovely house in the rich neighborhood of Tallahassee, Florida. Although he is said to be a successful and rich man, Michael actually had a very humble beginning. His father was a bus driver and his mother worked as a babysitter. Although poor, Michael's parents always cared and invest in your children. They accepted to live in a trailer instead of buying a house to have enough money for Michael and his brother to go to school, and Michael never let his parents down. Since middle school, Michael has worked part-time at a convenience store to help his parents. He has always been an excellent student and is loved by everyone. His friends like to play with Michael because he is a really gentle person and always willing to help others. When he was in high school, Michael was the student council president and was always actively involved in the school's sports movements. Michael plays football for the school team, and during a tournament he meets and falls in love with Dennis, a beautiful teacher. It was also around this time that Michael met Brian Winchester, and his girlfriend Kathy became close friends and went everywhere together. After graduating from Florida State University, Michael quickly got a good job for a real estate company. The owner of the company said that Michael was the hardest working man he had ever known. He often came home for dinner and then returned to the office late at night. There was a time when the director of the company had to forbid Michael from keeping the keys so that he could not go there to work overtime on the weekend. Besides work addiction, Michael also has another hobby, that is duck hunting. He has been hunting with his father since the age of 6. In 1994, Michael married Dennis while Brian married Kathy, but not long after, 5 years later, Michael and Dennis gave birth to their first daughter. Ankily, friends say Michael is devoted to his family as well. The way he is dedicated to his work. He always loves his wife and children and tries to give them the best life. But the human heart is always a difficult thing to understand. Dennis is growing cold towards Michael. She no longer loves her husband. No matter how hard Michael tries, he can't make Dennis happy. Just breathing was enough to make his wife uncomfortable, but Dennis grew up in a religious family who believed that divorce was a sin. Dennis cannot divorce and does not want to divorce, not only because of her deeply rooted religious beliefs, but also because Dennis does not want to have to split custody of the children. While poor Michael is always trying his best to save the marriage. He asked Dennis to go for a family consultation. He begged her to go on a trip. Dennis shook his head and refused. The naive Michael had no idea that he would never be able to win back Dennis's love, because for years she had secretly had an affair with Michael's best friend. Saturday, December 16, 2000, Michael woke up early, get ready to go hunting back at noon because it was their 6th wedding anniversary. But it was too late, but Dennis still didn't see Michael back. The sky was getting dark because it was winter, so it got dark very early. Dennis called Michael, but he didn't pick up. She immediately called her father and Brian. The two of them went to the police station to ask the police to search for Michael. The lifeguard dispatched the local police quickly to Lake Seminole, but unfortunately shortly after they arrived, a storm made landfall, causing them to suspend the search. Early the next morning, the rescue team returned. They quickly found Michael's truck and boat. The boat was still full of gas on board. They found guns, lures and other hunting gear, but they couldn't find it. No trace of Michael at all. During the next 44 days, the police mobilized all forces to search for Michael. Multiple agent dog helicopters and hundreds of divers scoured the area near where the boat was found. It is estimated that authorities have spent about 700 hours of manpower searching for Michael, but with each passing day the hope of finding Michael is dwindling. No one said anything, but everyone believed that they were trying to find a body rather than just one person in distress. Michael is the first case of disappearance at this lake where the body has not been found. Wildlife investigators believe that Michael may have fallen into the lake and been attacked by an alligator, but this theory was soon rejected by many because the American alligator had a hibernation habit and did not hunt. Bait in cold weather. The time Michael went missing was in the middle of winter. The daytime temperature is 13 degrees Celsius. At night the lake can freeze. So the crocodile attack hypothesis is no convince. Moreover, even if crocodiles attack Michael, they can't swallow him whole. Crocodiles often tear down their prey before eating. Michael is 1 meter 78 and weighs 77 kilograms if he is eaten, the workers must be sure. Diving head to find something left, but Michael seems to have disappeared into midair. The search seems to have come to a standstill. Until 6 months later, June 2001, the investigation team suddenly found it. A hat, an amphibious suit, is said to be the outfit Michael often wears when hunting. But the strange thing is that the suit did not have any blood stains or any lacerations indicating that the crocodile had attacked its wearer. The divers also found a hunting jacket, hunting license, and a flashlight from the owner. Michael. The newly found evidence raised more questions, answering why could the police not see these when they scoured the same area for the previous 6 months? Why is everything on the bottom of the lake for 6 months still like new? The hunting license is still clearly visible. The flashlight is still working properly. Michael's boat also has many suspicious points. The first is that the storm that fell on the night of Michael's disappearance had a westerly wind, so it should have been. The boat must have been blown that way. But the next morning when the rescue team found the boat, it was found upwind. The second is the question of the boat's fuel tank. If Michael falls out of the boat while the boat is stationary and the engine is off, why can't he row back into the boat? And if Michael falls out of the boat while the boat is moving, follow the switch operating the boat will continue to run in circles until the fuel tank is empty. Then stop while the boat is found that the fuel tank is still full. Whether Michael's mysterious disappearance has many anomalies, the police have not been able to find his body or any other evidence to continue the investigation. Gradually, Michael's disappearance became a frozen case and drifted into oblivion, seeming to soon accept the truth. She organized a funeral for Michael, although his body was not found in Florida. When someone goes missing, it takes 5 years for that person to be legally declared dead, but only 6 months after Michael went missing, Dennis applied for a death certificate for Michael and held a funeral, although his body was never found. Dennis seems to want to start a new life and doesn't want to dig up Michael's disappearance again. In contrast to Cheryl, Michael's mother never gave up hope of finding her son. She did everything to keep her son from being forgotten. Despite her advanced age, every day she goes out to the streets to hand out flyers, hold signs to find people. Some friends help her raise money to post billboards and find clues by publishing in the local newspaper. She writes thousands of handwritten letters to the governor and the authorities begging them investigate more about his son's disappearance. But this made Dennis extremely angry. She threatened Cheryl that if she tried to involve investigators again, she would never let her see her granddaughter Ansley. Dennis' strange reaction made many people suspicious. Normally, wives with such missing husbands would have to have a white fever, which is every way to clear things up, but it seems that Dennis just wanted people to forget about this just a few months after Michael went missing during the searches. Still going on, Dennis went to the insurance company to claim Michael's life insurance money. It turns out that 6 months before Michael disappeared, he bought one of the highest value insurance plans for $1.5 million. The person who sold that insurance to Michael was Brian, a close friend that Michael absolutely trusted. Shortly after Michael disappeared, Brian filed for divorce from his wife and openly had an affair with Dennis. In 2005, Dennis and Brian were officially married, and Brian moved into the house that Michael had lived in before. Meanwhile, Cheryl continues to fight for justice for her son. She compiled 27 pages of notes into a file and sent 9,000 letters to the governor of Florida for 9 years in a row, vowing to never give up until the truth is found and justice for her children. Dennis seemed happier when she was briefly in an affair. After getting married, Dennis once again felt that she no longer loved Brian as before and started to cheat on Brian like how she was cheating on Michael before. After a while of marriage, it was discovered that Dennis was having an affair with Charge, another of their mutual friends, and furious, Brian phoned his ex-wife Kathy in a drunken rage to admit that Michael's death was caused by Dennis and that he planned it. But instead of calling the police, Kathy chose to keep quiet. Brian and Dennis' marriage lasted until 2015. Dennis filed for divorce. Brian feels betrayed. He has given up custody, and when he divorced his wife to live with Dennis and her daughter, he even killed someone to be with Dennis, and now Dennis wants to throw him away like a trash can. On the 5th of May, August 2015, when Dennis had just left work and got into the car, She panicked when she noticed Brian sitting in the back seat. He said Dennis was all he had. After the incident, Brian apologized to Dennis about his act of outburst and explained that he did so because he was so desperate and frightened that he did it. Dennis agreed to forgive Brian and promised she would not call the police. But after driving Brian home, Dennis drove straight to the police department. Brian was arrested and charged with kidnapping and assault. Armed, Dennis crying and asking the court to leave Brian's locker for the rest of his life. When the two accomplices turned their backs on each other, the police hope this can help them solve Michael's disappearance, and Wright predicted a few months after his arrest Brian agreed to tell the truth in order to get relief. Brian told police where he buried Michael in a remote forest in North Leon, Royal County, admitting that the affair was his affair with Dennis began in 1997. 3 years before Michael was murdered. Dennis wanted to act early when her daughter was young enough to quickly forget about her father. Chose December 9, 2000 as the date of the plan, but that morning Dennis changed his mind and called Brian to say that they should cancel the plan. Brian felt both relieved and confused, but a few days later Dennis felt both relieved and confused. Changed their mind again and they chose December 16th as the day Michael's fate. Brian admitted he was the shooter, but the mastermind was Dennis. May 8, 2018, Denmark NIS was arrested while she was preparing her daughter's 19th birthday party. She was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison amnesty. Dennis's team immediately filed an appeal. In 2020, the court overturned Dennis' murder conviction. However, her murder conspiracy charge remained. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Because Brian cooperated with the police, he was commutation and was only sentenced to 20 years in prison from beginning to end. Dennis always insisted he was innocent. She said she knew nothing about the plan to kill Michael. Most people watching the case do not believe her innocence, but there are still some who believe that she was wrongly convicted. Daughter, she is one of them. Michael is a great man. Overall, he always put his family first, but received the ultimate betrayal from the very people he loved and trusted the most. It took 20 years for justice to be served, but Michael's mother's love and struggle made many people admire. Michael is clearly not the only victim in this case. Anyone feels sorry for Ansley, their daughter. The girl who lost her father at a young age grew up with her mother and stepfather only to discover that she had been calling her father's killer by her father's name for many years. Ansley believed in her mother's innocence, but it made her hate her grandmother because she thinks she is the reason why her parents were arrested. In the end, Ansley is also a child who has lost the most due to the selfish greed and cruelty of adults. Every year until Ansley's birthday, she and her relatives still post happy birthday wishes to her in a local newspaper. She never answers the phone. But Cheryl never stopped hope.